Hello, welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for people to get logged in, and then we will go ahead and get started. If you're logged in, go ahead and drop in the chat where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see where everyone is. So as we wait for everyone to get logged in, say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And we'll get started in just a couple more minutes. All right, just give it another moment. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We're so excited to celebrate this fantastic book, Ed Mitchell's Barbecue, and we are here with Ryan Mitchell and Nicole A. Taylor, and they are going to tell you all about it, and you're going to be able to ask questions as well. So we're very excited, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Zoe Friesen. I'm the events manager here at Book Larder. Book Larder is a cookbook store. It's a community cookbook store located in Seattle, Washington. So we do 100% cookbooks and food writing, and we love to host authors and yeah, just talk about cookbooks as much as possible. So yeah, just a few kind of Zoom details before we get started. Let's see, the talk will be recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel within about 48 hours or so. And those of you that are watching now, you'll be getting an email with a link to the replay. So if you need to jump off early, you can always go back and watch the end, or if you just want to rewatch or send it to a friend or anything like that, you'll have that link for you in your email. I have turned on the live transcript. So if you want to turn that on or turn it off or anything like that, you just go down to those three dots that say more on the bottom of your screen there. And you can go ahead and control whether you are seeing that or not. Let's see, what else do I have to share? You can support the talk by purchasing a copy of this fantastic book from us. Thank you so much to all of you who have done so. And I will be dropping that link in the chat as well. And then for all of your questions, go ahead and use the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen and put any questions that you might have in there. And Nicole will make sure that she addresses those. So you can use the chat to talk to me and talk to each other and all that. But for your questions, make sure you pop those in the Q&A box so that Nicole's able to see those. Okay, and without further ado, let's welcome Ryan Mitchell and Nicole A. Taylor.
Happy Monday, y'all. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday, everyone.
Thank you so much, Book Larder, for hosting this. I have to say, Book Larder is one of my favorite cookbook stores in the country. I'm a super fan of all the work that they do. And I'm so delighted, Ryan, that they asked me to moderate this conversation between you and your dad to support this new beautiful cookbook, Ed Mitchell's Barbecue. Ed and Ryan Mitchell, Pitmasters with Zella Palmer. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a long time coming. So, you know, we're just excited and we're ready to get going.
Well, Ryan, first, you know, I want to, as they say, as people say in pop culture in the Black community, I want to give your father his flowers. I know he's a bit under the weather right now, resting up so you guys can keep moving with this leg of your tour. But just want to send up some positive, restful energy to him right now. And I wish he was on this call.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. He's gonna be waiting for me to get back in and fill him in on everything, but he's resting up well. So we like I said, we had a long week of kicking off, you know, pub date this week. So he's gonna get some rest and get some IVs and manage some of his health concerns, and we'll be back at it on Thursday. We got another 100 people.
I know, right? I mean, so I want to talk first about the significance of this book, and then I want you to really tell people your father's story.
Absolutely.
First of all, this book is the second. Well, I lie. I think this is the third cookbook written by Black pitmasters. You have Bloodsoe,
Correct.
you have Rodney Scott, and
Correct.
then you have my brother in Oakland.
I want to say, isn't that Bledsoe from Oakland or Cali?
No, he's in
No,
LA.
he's a LA. That's right. Correct. I'm sorry.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh my gosh, I just saw him in Oakland. But there are, you know, in the past 3 years,
Correct.
has been this onset of Black pitmaster cookbooks. The first one published by a pitmaster was Rodney Scott, and prior to that, Al Roker, the television guy. He's the only other person. And then, of course, Adrian Miller. His book is very scholarly, but this book is groundbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, you know, to be honest, that was the pitch that was given to us after 15 years of headlining the Big Apple Block Party. I was sitting on a bench in New York City, you know, just wrapping up, the 15th year, 16th year of the Big Apple Block Party. And, you know, we had an agent who was a fan sit beside us and say, hey, you know, you could be the first African-American pitmasters to tell their own story and write their own cookbook. And so it's New York, you know, so I'm sitting here like, who is this lady? You know, what are you talking about? So my dad, I mean, we're exhausted, man. You know, we cooked 17 hogs that weekend and served over 100,000 people. And it was just, we were exhausted. And so, to be honest, we inked this deal in 2015, 2016. And that particular time, we were set to be the first to sign that deal. And it was kind of mind blowing to me that the opportunity hadn't, you know, been out to the world just yet. So that was, you know, one of the things that really put us on track to kind of getting the project going. So we're 8 years in the making, 7 years in the making of getting this project out to the world. The pandemic comes along in 2020, and you know the whole world is on standstill and in need of, you know, cultural stories, and they have an ear and an eye out, you know, for Black stories and the opportunity for us to tell our own stories in our own voice. So, you know, the project got green lighted because
It did. Wait. So it wasn't until 2020 that this book got sold?
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, 2020, 2021 actually. But we inked the agency deal, and then 6.5 years of you know, just kind of manning the project and waiting for the right time. And then during the pandemic, we got a call from Echo, and it was like, you know, the time is now. We can't sit on this project anymore. And so, you know, we put things in motion and started doing it. And you know, that's how the ball got rolling. Well, it was very significant.
I say wow, because I'm a person who has followed your dad, his career, and him being really a leader in the barbecue world. I don't know, since I've been obsessed with food, I would say 20 plus years. So literally I say wow and go, wait, 20, because it's unbelievable. So tell us about your father's story, like how he started barbecuing, when he left barbecuing, and then when he came back, and how he built his business. If you don't mind just telling about some of the challenges along the way of him being an entrepreneur in the American South.
Absolutely. You know, first and foremost, we represent 150 years of barbecue legacy. People always ask, how do you get 150 years? My great grandfather, Loria Sanders, who's also mentioned in the cookbook, was born in right around 1870. You know, he fathered 35 children with 2 wives. And so the second wife, you know, in that marriage, his second marriage came out of that. My grandmother, Miss Doretha Mitchell, who's in the cookbook. Doretha and Willie made Ed, and Ed and Sandra made Ryan. So I always reference that so people understand when we say, you know, barbecue is in our DNA, and what does that mean, and what does the hospitality mean, and what does the legacy mean? Because, you know, these are time periods when the craft was done, you know, moving off plantation to sharecropping to a way of life here in the South in Wilson, North Carolina. So my father grew up under those conditions with my grandmother and my grandparents really using barbecue as, just a craft and a skill that was used to kind of feed the neighborhood at the end of the tobacco season, at the end of sharecropper seasons. Tobacco and cooking barbecue, specifically whole hog barbecue, was, the medium of celebration. And so, the pit guys, during that time period were, neighborhood and community celebrities, so to say, because that craft meant so much to our culture. Um, so we get into, during his childhood and during his early adult life, he was just cooking barbecue by hanging out with my great grandfather and my great uncles. Just out with the guys around the campfire one night. As the story goes, my grandfather, great grandfather, and one of my uncles fell asleep while manning a whole hog for the next day's shindig, as they called it. And my dad was 14 years old, out, hanging out with those guys, and they fell asleep on too much moonshine. And so my dad's sitting there just wanting to keep hanging out, and not go in the house, and stayed up all night with them and save, the hog that was going to be cooked for the next day's family union by, making sure the coals were done and just doing all the things that he had saw, keeping the coals hot and making sure the animal was done. And all the older gentlemen, kind of woke up the next morning from their nights of, just hanging out and drinking, and, realized my dad had kind of saved the day, with cooking the hog. And so at that point in time, my grandfather, just kind of anointed him as, the next, you're going to be the next family's greatest, at that time they called them pit boys, weren't pit masters yet, but, barbecue is anointed to you to keep on carrying this family tradition. So, that was his kind of first baptism right off the farm, in understanding what the craft meant to the community. So fast forward 1991, my grandfather passes away. Now, my grandparents bought a corner store in the late 1880s after they retired. And it was just a typical corner neighborhood grocery store that we used, and sold meats and cheeses and, fresh fruit, kind of your typical corner bodega. They retired and purchased that property as just something to try and hand off to their children. Um, and when my grandfather passed away in 91, my grandmother's method of grieving is cooking, feeding, hospitality, taking care of the family through her love of food and feeding our family. So that afternoon, we put a small hog on, just in reference for family dinner, and for some other relatives that were going to stop by the restaurant that evening, and kind of just make sure, have a family gathering in order to keep honoring my grandfather. Um, and so we put a pig on that day. Customer came by at the end of the night when we were closed and wanted to know what the smell was and could they get a sandwich. And we were closed for business. And so my grandma was like, "No, honey, I'm not going to take your money, but you can have a sandwich." And gave the gentleman a sandwich. And he went off into the neighborhood, ate the sandwich, and told everybody behind us that the Mitchells were selling barbecue.
Ah.
So the next day, we have this line outside of people looking for barbecue. And my father is there, checking on my grandmother and making sure seeing how the day was going to go. And he sees these guys keep asking for barbecue. And he's like, "Well, we don't have any today, but we'll have some tomorrow."
So
And so
I
now,
have to interrupt you and ask you this.
yeah.
So had your father left, because the story that I read in the book, that your father actually left North Carolina,
Yeah.
went to work in a Ford plant. Did he work in Detroit? Where did he work in corporate
He
America?
worked in Boston, Massachusetts. So before we get back into the 90s, my father also graduate of Fayetteville State University and a Vietnam veteran. Once he got back from the war and finished his schooling, he took a corporate job in Boston to work for Ford Motor Company. And at that time, Ford Motor Company was piloting their minority dealership program.
Mhm.
And so he went up to Boston and he took a job with Ford and was going through their development program, and things kind of hit a wall, and the program kind of fizzled out. It wasn't really ready for another opportunity like that to come back, for a Black man to be a car dealership owner quite yet, in the South.
So was that
So
that was his original dream to own a car dealership?
no, I won't say that it was an opportunity, upon graduating, that was presented to, hey, this is one of a course of things that you can try and pursue entrepreneurship here in the South and be something, education, entrepreneurship. And so the idea of being a car dealership owner sounded, like a promising thing, because there weren't any in our town yet. So to go off and have a chance to learn the program, and then what was supposed to happen, from my knowledge, is now you get to come back to your side of the country or where you're from, and then be managing or owning your own dealership. And so, that was his original first shot at entrepreneurship. Um, that didn't work out, and so from there he pursued a real estate license and different things, trying to figure out just how he was going to make it, being a younger Black man in the South, trying to pursue his own destiny and control his own destiny, and not have to fight through some of the things that was going on in corporate America at that time. So he's always been a dreamer, always been a fighter, always wanted to be the guy who helped other people through his entrepreneurship and through his knowledge and leading the way. So when the opportunity came for us to kind of move over to opening the restaurant, we just kind of just gravitated into that, really just to help my grandmother through a grieving process, and also for him to be in front of taking over, just managing the daily income of how we were gonna deal with losing a breadwinner, which was
So
my
how old were
grandfather.
you around this time in the early 80s?
Uh, I was 13. I was 13. Well, when my grandfather passed, I was 13
Yes.
years old. Yeah, and but that is when we kind of unofficially enter the barbecue world commercially. Prior to that, it was just what the elder statesman and the Mitchell family name was kind of known to be able to be good at. We weren't like,
Mhm.
we didn't have a business yet. It was just cultural neighborhood thing.
Oh yeah, meaning when 4th of July came on Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend,
Yeah, yeah.
you want a good plate, you got to go to the Mitchells.
Yeah, you come by our house, and our backyard, and my uncle's backyard, and my great uncle's backyard on the on the corner was always the popping corner for the holidays. So people knew.
Here's the thing: as I listen to you tell your father's story, I hear your story.
Yeah,
I mean, I identically
yeah,
hear your story. That's why I
yeah,
asked how old were you when y'all started the barbecue business, because
yeah,
essentially you went to corporate America as well.
yeah, yeah.
You left
Couldn't
you left the
could
South, went to corporate America, and then came back to do barbecue.
Yeah, couldn't make it up in a thousand years, man. But the story within that story is, growing up here in the South, and the identity that young Black men have to try to recreate for themselves in order to be seen as educated,
Mm.
smart, in order to be seen as someone who is, you know, a leader, and someone who is of value. You had to create or try and create a lane that was beyond what this plantation life in the South said that you could be. And so, my dad jokes with me all the time. He's like, man, when I graduated, there was probably, like, there would be a line at the bus station that was longer than the people that were at school. Like, the celebration line at the bus station and the train station used to be longer than the high school graduations, because everybody would be, that once you graduate high school, now is your chance to kind of get out to the world and go be something. So that was those transformations here in the South, migrations here in our hometown was, you educate yourself well enough to move on, and kind of get to greener pastures, so to say. Um,
So
and
I wanna kind of talk about when you said my hometown before we
yeah,
get into particular about barbecue. There are two things I want to touch on,
mhm,
and that is the difference between white men
mhm,
who opt into professional barbecue worlds, entrepreneurs, and Black men, how
mhm,
these two people, entities are seen differently. Like, I know the story of your father being an educated Black man, right? Who was in the
correct.
barbecue world, who honestly is the blueprint for a lot of white barbecue pit masters of how to do barbecue shows, how to use the media. But
Yep,
he's oftentimes, in my opinion, not seen as this brainy
right,
man, right?
correct.
Almost like a character. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also
Yep,
talk about your hometown, where you're from. Tell us, take us there so we can understand what it's like to build a fire and to do barbecue in North Carolina.
absolutely. So in order to really kind of understand the dilemma, or the migration between black white pit masters and what have you in the business sense, is that, again, these skill sets were mastered on the plantation, so to say. So when you the movement from sharecropping plantation life into building a successful hospitality business or a restaurant empire, you have to remember those barbecue business got started when we weren't even actually allowed to eat in them, but we were allowed to cook in them. Okay. So the separation kind of starts right there as far as what you can dream and what you are allowed to dream to be as it relates to what barbecue is, because the gap between cooking in the back, being good enough to work in the back of the pits, but not being good enough to actually be, in the front of the house or in the front of leadership of it, that declaration starts very, right there in the front. So if you want to move past that, then you have to, pursue just, have to ultimately, tenaciously pursue entrepreneurship and trying to build your own business, which is the route we had to take. And it ended up being in barbecue, it ended up being in food. Um, so that's where the difference starts. And for so many black pit masters, they get lost along the way here in the South because opportunities stop right in the smokehouse. They don't get opportunities to move forward, and resources are limited, and ideas are limited, and dreams are just kind of put on hold when you aren't allowed to be part of ownership. Um, so Wilson, North Carolina, we have, during that time in the 40s and the 50s, we had two mega barbecue families that were building empires, and Bill's Barbecue and Parker's Barbecue. Those two barbecue legacies go back to the 1940s, and right around, Wilson, North Carolina used to be known as the corridor for barbecue world. I mean, we had tobacco was the leading economic engine, and the pig and pig farming was the leading farming engine as well. So we had two major resources of economic development that came through our hometown of Wilson. And so being in those two industries, came with limitations for black folks. So, you know, pursuing, as we move through years, move along through the years, we have to kind of, in fact, and Antonio Bourdain, when we entered the opportunity to be on Cook's tour in 1990, I'm sorry, in 2002, Antonio Bourdain said to us directly when he came, he said, I was specifically looking for the black man who his name was on the building, but he was also in the pits as well, and vice versa. He said, I couldn't find any black ownership where the guy cooking was the name on the marquee. And he
That's
said
what Anthony Bourdain said.
that's what
Wow.
Antonio Bourdain told us that verbatim as to why, one of the reasons why he sought us out after hearing about us at the Big Apple Block Party was that, hey, you guys are one of the only, you know, you Ed are the only pitmaster that I can come see where, you know, there's not a split between who's working in the pit and whose name is on the building. You
Yeah.
know, it's the same person and the same family for us. So that was one of the distinctions, you know, that we were fortunate enough to be able to have, you know, as we started laying the bricks in the barbecue world.
Yeah, you know, your father, I mean, he talks about it in the book
Mhm.
about his career, but I definitely think like if people are of a certain age and you grew up on Food Network or TV,
Right.
there's no way you can escape not knowing who your father is. He's iconic. He has an iconic uniform. His
Yeah. Yeah.
his overalls are his
Yeah.
thing.
Overall, other thing.
He never deviates from them. But you know, I think it was a few years ago, the podcast that, if I'm not mistaken, Southern Foodway Alliance did about him. And
Mhm.
that podcast about
Yeah.
white supremacy, let me just keep it real,
Yeah, for sure.
about white supremacy and systemic racism and
Mhm.
just what I want to call haters.
Right. 100%.
Ooh, that took me out just to hear your father's story about business deals, white men. He, in my opinion, he was
Yeah.
in business with, wanted to take advantage of him, right? And
Yeah.
just hunt to I'm gonna just call it a hunt to basically simmer the Mitchell barbecue or the Mitchell name down. Can you talk, if you feel comfortable talking a little bit about how you rise above all of that?
Yeah,
Can
we you know, what we so let's backtrack just a little bit to 2000s, right? So what we made our mark in this business by saying, hey, if we're going to be in the barbecue business, my dad's his philosophy, the thing that we were going to do to separate ourselves from the other establishments was we were going to stay true to cooking the whole hog barbecue. He designed, he said, I'm going to put these overalls on that great granddaddy used to wear, and I'm going to wear them every day. And we're going to cook whole hog barbecue, and we're going to separate ourselves from the other guys who are, you know, the other barbecue establishments around here had moved on to
market?
shoulders, market, right? The other barbecue establishments had moved on to shoulders and hams and different cuts, and they were doing good barbecue. But in order for us to be able to compete, we had to have a niche, and our niche was going to be, hey, we're going to just be a whole hog establishment that tells the customer we are doing it the old-fashioned way. And so what happens in that time is that the Southern Foodways Alliance is making its way around the United States, and they are looking for the restaurants who are still committed to that. Okay, so within that fashion, what happens is the foodies always have the loudest voice. You know what I mean? And so once you are anointed to be one of the ones that they are interested in, well, the other barbecue places couldn't understand, why are you talking about this guy? And we're the ones over here making, you know, the millions of dollars and have the bigger name. Well, the movement wasn't about the name. The movement was about who is staying true to a farm to table style of a barbecue restaurant. And those are the businesses that we want to talk about. So once the New York media and the media of the United States gets a hold of that, then the firestorm, you know, gets created because they're just talking about us. You know what I mean? And like they're talking about my dad, they're talking about his commitment to the small farmer, and they're talking about his alliance and the things that he's trying to create opportunities for the small farmer to get whole hog and their particular products into, you know, into restaurants. And so, you know, the competition wasn't akin, you know, wasn't liking that because they weren't, the conversation wasn't on them anymore. My dad is, you know, he always says like, listen, I'm just a cook who's trying to give my customers the best tasting thing. This is what I grew up on. And so, but the economic movement inside of our city and inside of our state was moving towards commodity animals, because that is where the money is. That is where the growth is. Okay. And so anybody who is kind of speaking against that growth, then, we have a problem with you. But we didn't even understand what the problem was, because, the idea was, I just want to buy my hogs from small farmers.
Yeah.
It's not we're not here to create some sort of distinction between what anybody else is doing. I just want to buy from small farmers. And so that is where, the conflict begins, because you have larger operations who are upset that we are getting the voice.
Yeah.
And my dad is getting the voice to be on New York Times. My dad is getting the voice to be, this speaker, on pork, but he's not, he doesn't have the right skin color and the right message and the right, in their opinion, he doesn't have the right to be giving that type of leadership on, on pork, because that money ain't trickling towards, in their direction. So
Totally. So to kind of switch the conversation a little bit, I want to
Yep.
talk about really how your family, you and your father, kind of innovated. You talked a bit about the whole hog and how you
Mhm.
had always served whole hog, but you guys were innovators in how you operated your barbecue business, what
Mhm.
kind of sides you had. There was your dad, as some would say now, he was Afro-futuristic. He saw into the future.
Yeah, he
So
did.
talk about that a little bit and how some of those recipes are
Yeah,
in Ed Mitchell's barbecue book, your new book that's out. You and your father.
absolutely. So, once we, you know, began to kind of pick up some traction, we have a chance to visit New York City, and we see what is happening, with some of the better restaurants up there, like the Blue Smokes and some of the other barbecue
Rest in peace.
restaurants. Yeah, right. Recipe. We see that barbecue is going for, 67 $70 a plate in the city, and it's really just a change of atmosphere. That's really all it was about, right? So we decided to, hey, we're going to take barbecue and we're going to take these southern side dishes, and we're going to recreate an atmosphere in Raleigh to where people don't associate barbecue with a low country food and a low country style of eating, so that the next generation can be more comfortable, so that, me and you and all the other forward thinking, you know people in the world can come to the South and not feel like they're sitting down in that restaurant that used to say no blacks allowed, and not feel like they're sitting, at that barbecue table that said, you know you know no coloreds can sit here. So by doing that, what you do is you recreate the environment, and put barbecue in somewhat of an elevated fashion. So when you comb through the book, you'll notice that we have barbecue, the plating and the photography of some of the dishes are in a much elevated fashion, so that we can celebrate being able to eat what it is we like to eat, and feel, comfortable that we're in an environment that is suitable for us. So, that doesn't entice some of these older memories that had not been associated with a good time for our people. So, thinking for back then, you didn't have to call it farm to table. It was just, hey, now it has a whole subculture to it. But the ingenuity that my dad brought back to the South for our area, because up and down 301, up and down from our city, from our town to the next town, to all the way to the state capital, a barbecue sandwich is $1.25. So, you know, the idea that you're going to get $30 a plate for a plate of barbecue in the South was unheard of, and all the way up through 2005, because the cuisine wasn't celebrated in that type of environment yet. And so it's forward thinking to raise the bar on your experience, and was what captivated the business model that we founded and laid down in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so, from there, it was a whole slew of barbecue restaurants who changed the idea, changed their culinary presentation on how they were going to serve up barbecue in the South. And so I tell people all the time, man, what you see on Food Network today and what you see, the rock star that you see Pitmasters and barbecue in right now, my dad was at the forefront of that in the 90s
Wow.
by making it cool, and making it, a way to, re-identify the Pitmaster as the guy, re-identify barbecue and Southern cooked barbecue as a dish to be, accepted in, with a glass of wine, so, we put all of those pieces together.
Yeah, you guys definitely were a part of the evolution of the barbecue landscape now for sure. I want to delve a little bit into the book.
Mhm.
The next two sections of our conversation, I want to talk about, there's a lot of barbecue in the book, obviously. You
Yeah.
start the book off about like how to build a fire and what I call the art and the labor of barbecue. But you also have a lot of connections between barbecue and fish fries.
Yes.
And I love your little head note about home fries because I love potatoes. Okay.
Right,
So
right.
when I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's my cousin. But I want to just talk about why barbecues and fish fries are interlinked. And I'm bringing this up because 4th of July, Juneteenth, Black celebrations is when you see barbecues. This also the same time you see fish fries too. Talk
Right.
about how your father and you incorporate fish into your barbecue practice.
Absolutely. So first of all, on the cover, it's Ed Mitchell's Barbecue. It's QUE, right? So for us to stay true to the early research that we started doing for our area of North Carolina, QUE was influenced by the French and the Portuguese colonists, who in Wilmington, North Carolina. The spelling of QUE was the first spelling and the first, similar symbols of language forced on our the Black slaves coming off the boats in Wilmington, North Carolina. Wilmington and Charleston, South Carolina, obviously the two docks, right? Wilmington is beachland. It is seafood. It is the ocean. It is fish was a huge part of the survival for our Black for our early ancestors here in the Carolinas. It doesn't get talked about a lot because, pork is the dominant, economic factor. But we include fish fries because, our town, Wilson, North Carolina is, hour and a half from the beach, and seafood and fishing and, and the creek fish and all the streams that ran up into the mainland, through our area, were very, very instrumental with, survival, of some of our Black folks and our family here as well. So fish fries and the appreciation, for seafood was something that we had to include because it's always been a part of our culture. It just doesn't get the highlight, that everybody would know about, because the geographical setting for Wilson, North Carolina is, like I said, an hour and a half from the beach, but we're also 45 minutes from the capital. So we're in that sweet spot geographically where seafood can still be appreciated, but you're also growing hogs over here, like a mile up the country road, but you can also get in the car and get down to the beach and get you some and fish you up some fresh croakers and bring them back to the house too. And that was my grandfather's favorite pastime. We would ride down to the coast fill up the cooler with all types of, flounder and croaker and mullets and sea mullets and all that kind of stuff. And he would bring them back on Saturday. My grandmother would stay up all night Saturday night cooking, cleaning the fish, and they would be fried fresh on Sunday morning as soon as everybody got back from church. And it would just be a whole deal. You know what I mean? So seafood and home fries, man, they became a huge part of our family celebrations.
Thank you for schooling me on that. I don't think
Yeah.
I knew the geographic location of Wilson to the beach.
Yeah,
You just
yeah,
schooled me. That
yeah,
makes total sense. So I
yeah,
want to get into the cookbook. I hate when people ask me this question because I
yeah,
haven't written cookbooks. What's
yeah.
your favorite recipe? Because it's so hard, but
Yeah.
I will have to say I want you to talk about some of the barbecue recipes, but you guys have so many beautiful recipes that aren't barbecue, but they're barbecue adjacent,
Yeah,
like smoked mac and cheese, which is
right.
I would say that's your aunt, right? Aunt's
That's
recipe.
that's my sister. Yeah, my sister.
Oh, that's your sister.
That's my sister's recipe. Yeah, that was my dedication recipe to her. She passed away a couple 4 years ago.
Wow.
But my sister was Cherie's mac and cheese. My sister was, she carried on that tradition that my grandmother had. So my grandmother, born and raised and worked on plantations her entire life.
Mm.
Uh, and so my grandmother's thing was when she got home, she would redecorate the table in the house with all of the nicest, dishes that she could find because she wanted my dad and the family to understand that she was putting that energy into cooking and cleaning in somebody else's home. She was going to do it for hers as well. And she didn't want them to feel as though the places up the street that they weren't allowed to eat in were better than, her kitchen table or at home. So it was kind of like a reverse psychology to upgrade this dinner table, so that we could, Black families ate at home, for almost always back in those times. So my sister's mac and cheese and her recipes, she was kind of the first of our second generation to get off to DC and get off to college, and she would bring back all these elaborate cheeses and things that we couldn't pronounce because she was around. She graduated from Howard University, so she was around so many different. Yeah, graduated, and she was around so many different types of people and so many culinary experiences. So the upgraded mac and cheese was her contribution to the Christmas holidays and Thanksgiving. And so we got some smoked Gouda in there, and we tie it back into the classic American hoop cheese and Colby cheese that we use. And so it's a smoked, we smoke the noodles and kind of turn macaroni and cheese into its own world, in the book. So that's our recipe.
That's a beautiful
Uh,
story. That is
yeah,
really a beautiful story to honor your sister.
yeah,
I want to kind of talk a little bit about the barbecue. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't about to make no whole hog. You got a
yeah.
whole recipe for Carolina Eastern, and you say Eastern North Carolina style barbecue.
I do.
And I think anyone who's interested, they should do the whole thing. Y'all
Yeah,
lay it in the book. I
yeah,
want to talk about dressing it. I want to talk about the vinegar,
yeah.
barbecue sauces. You
Right.
have a recipe in the relishes and sauces chapter.
Yes.
You guys have or had, correct me which one it is, a line with True Made Foods.
Yeah, we do. So we our barbecue sauces are in stores nationally. I just want to make that known. However, we do give a little family twist on some vinegar-based barbecue sauce in there that people want to use. But our vinegar-based barbecue sauce and all the sauces are in grocery stores around the country.
Well, you gotta tell the
But
people.
but Eastern North Carolina barbecue
Yes.
is synonymous and it with vinegar-based barbecue sauce. Okay, it's not even barbecue without vinegar-based barbecue on it. So we don't even eat it without it being served up in that way.
So tell
So
us the difference between the vinegar base and the Texas style and the South Carolina. I think some people don't even realize that barbecue is super regional. Earlier, I couldn't remember horn barbecue. Like
yeah,
LA and West Coast barbecue is its own thing.
Right.
Texas barbecue is its own thing. And then when you go to Texas, you got a whole nother regional thing inside of Texas. But
Yeah.
just tell people and explain. You do a great job in the book of taking us to Wilson, taking us to North Carolina. Explain what is so important and different about North Carolina barbecue and the North Carolina barbecue sauces.
Yeah. So again, our early African American ancestors here in Wilson, North Carolina, via Wilmington, apple cider vinegar became more than just a flavor, a condiment. When you cook the whole animal, and when you're outside, and when you're in the elements, apple cider vinegar becomes a way to keep the meat preserved. It becomes a way to break down the animal. It becomes a way to preserve the animal. It stretches, the freshness and the ability to eat that meat for 2, 3, 4 days. And so our ancestors were using apple cider vinegar on all of the large volume outdoor barbecues, from 1800s on up. So vinegar-based barbecue sauce here is akin to cooking the whole hog, because the flavor and cooking it is just ingrained in what we're trying to do to preserve the animal. Okay. Apple cider vinegar is also an old school remedy to keep flies away, right?
Yeah.
So back in the day, when you got cooking in ground pits, one of the ways to keep the flies away and keep food, and somewhat as sanitized as you can, was you dab apple cider vinegar on that hot pork and on that hot meat, and keeps the flies off of it, right? So all of these old school remedies and all of this ingenuity, from our ancestors via apple cider vinegar, makes it a part of just the instant, experience when you're going to eat chopped barbecue here in, Eastern North Carolina. So apple cider vinegar, crushed red pepper, hot sauce, those are things that we use to kind of, and salt and pepper. Those are things that we use to kind of bring out all the flavor and all the different portions of cooking the whole hog. Each part of the animal has a different flavor profile. Shoulders, hams, the loins. So mixing it up, chopping it up, mixing it all together, that's how you get the full experience. So hey, if you don't want to cook the whole hog, I tell people all the time, they cook a quarter, and then we cut down on some of the servings on the recipes and the seasoning. So there's a workaround if you don't want to cook the whole hog. I'll walk you through it.
For sure. So what are some of your favorite go-to recipes in the book that it's a holiday weekend, you like, okay, I'm about to make this at home. What do you turn to?
So the smoked collard green dip is one of my favorites for using on sports holidays.
I gotta make that. That sounds so tasty. The picture is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's
Photography is
kinda,
gorgeous. I gotta shout out the photography because
oh my God.
I can't even remember. I'm having a brain lapse. I was somewhere.
Max Miller.
I held this book up and the person said, "Oh, I know her.
Yeah.
I've been following her forever." I can't even remember who told me this, but they were so excited that I had it was before it came out and they saw it.
Another North Carolinian homegrown amazing talent out of New Bern, North Carolina, which is 20 minutes from Wilmington, 20 minutes, from the right along the coast, our coastal plain here that we're keeping it, authentic with. And her mind, we didn't even have to overly explain the vision to her. I mean, she got it. And that was just such a blessing to have, that level of talent locally, that I didn't have to, go, trying to recreate an experience with someone about what North Carolina barbecue is through the lens. But yes, it couldn't have been put together. Her plating and her eyes is amazing. But some of my favorite recipes, again, a smoked collard green dip, the crusted chicken wings. I do a pork rind crust on the smoked chicken wings.
Ah,
kind of another way to kind of, it's funny, a lot, the crackling crusted hush puppies, all of these things, man, come from some of the best recipes in the book come from uh, hungry staff members from back in the day in the restaurant who were just trying to like make up something to eat, you know what I mean? And kind of do staff meals on, but like, some of my chefs, some of the guys I work with who didn't want to, didn't want to use their own money to like buy food. So they standing back there trying to figure out what to eat and snack on that they can make out of leftovers, a la crackling crusted cornbread. They took the old bags of pork skins and, just ball them up and then use that as a coating on chicken, throw it in the oven instead of using up all my grandma's flour. They make up, their own version of a fried chicken with pork rinds. I mean, it's the tomato pie is another one of my favorites.
oh, that's one of my favorite stories. I like how your father, is it your father or you said it's the Southern people's lasagna? He says Southern
Yeah,
people
my
in the
dad said
South.
that. Yeah, my dad said that recipe and that that idea was a collaboration between my dad and our first executive chef when we moved to Raleigh and opened our restaurant. He brought that recipe from one of the country clubs, and he was like, "Man, if you can do and my dad would pick out different things to pair with barbecue that he thought, the clientele was just going to be like, oh wow, there's no way that went together." But we grew up on it.
It works. So to dab, so we're gonna close out with desserts. Tell me about the chew bread.
The chew, the chew bread is like that was one of my granddad's one of his favorite things that my grandmother made. It was just so easy. Like she would, the chew bread was just something she made to kind of just keep everybody at bay while she was making cakes and the real good desserts. Like she would just take some of the leftover flour and throw a little brown sugar in it and chop some walnuts in it and just it's like a poor man's brownie. Everybody call it country boy's brownie is what.
Yeah, it says country boy chew bread and it's flour, eggs, dark sugar, store-bought caramel sauce, salt, and pecans. But I can see like, especially I grew up in American South too, so we always cut pecans around, peanuts around, and walnuts.
All that stuff was out in the yard.
Like walnut trees. So they keep them in the freezer, and I can literally see your grandma making these.
Yeah, just making that with stuff that was pecan tree was grew in the yard. The caramel sauce, she had homemade caramel sauce back in the day, just in mason jars. So it was kind of like the little, dessert she made to keep the neighborhood boys, and my dad and them just out of her kitchen. So it was amazing. It was amazing.
So what's next for you guys? The book just came out. Are you guys doing the Big Apple Barbecue block party? Is it even around? I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, no, they did they have a dedication ceremony, fundraiser for the Big Apple Block Party, but it's no longer a festival anymore.
Oh wow.
And the last year of it was 2017. The Madison Square Park Conservatory purchased it, and they have yet to kind of bring it back to life as a weekend barbecue festival. So we're going to stick around and listen out for that. Hopefully it comes back, in the next couple of years. But right now we're promoting the book. Obviously, a barbecue sauce. Again, my father, for those who don't know, was diagnosed with diabetes in 2016. So we took some time and recreated, another space to use our platform to have a voice on voiding and highlighting, the sugar that is plaguing barbecue sauces and condiments in general all over the country. So our slogan is bring barbecue back to its roots. And so we created a line of no added sugar barbecue sauces, ketchups, and mustards as well. So we're promoting those. The Ed Mitchell rubs are out. I think Sprouts hopefully will pick them up on a national account here in the next couple of weeks. And so we're just moving along, man, trying to keep keep the flame going, keep the flame
So
alive.
if someone wanted to taste some of your barbecue after they purchased the book from Book Lauder.
We're planning a grand opening for our new restaurant for the first quarter of 2024. So we'll be in Raleigh, North Carolina. The name of the restaurant is called the Preserve Mitchell Family Barbecue. We're preserving the art of whole hog barbecue. And so we're going to be, obviously you're going to get a VIP invite so you can make sure everything is on point.
I don't have to worry about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell y'all what I'm going to make first. I'm making a collard green dip. Okay.
Yes. Very
but
good.
In the meantime, Book Lauder, if you look into the comment section, Zoe has placed a link to purchase Ed Mitchell's Barbecue, Ed and Rod Mitchell, Pitmasters, entrepreneurs, innovators, right? Trailblazers. Their book is out now, written by Zella Palmer. Congratulations. It's an honor to be able to talk to you. This conversation was amazing.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate you. People
Thank
like you.
Both of you. I'm just going to pop in with a few more photos. Oh, my green screen's kind of ruining it, but there's the mac and cheese. That's definitely what I'm going to make first. I love mac and cheese. I also grew up in North Carolina, so this book has a very special place in my heart. But yes, congratulations. It's such a fantastic book, and definitely please send on our, our warmest wishes to your father as well. And, I'm sure the book tour is hopefully a lot of fun, but we know it can be a kind of crazy as well. So
it's been a good time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here with us tonight. This was a fantastic conversation. I have a ton of recipes marked, so very excited to be diving into those this summer. And thank you to everyone joining us for the Zoom event as well.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Nicole.
Bye.
Bye-bye.